Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our weekly program here at the Blue Springs Church of Christ. My name is Noah Olson. It is such a privilege to be with you here on our program, What the Bible Says. With me tonight is our special guest, and he's been on a couple of times, my father, my dad, Matt Olson. Again, it's a privilege to have him tonight. We have a very important topic tonight, but before we do, we just want to again show you a couple things that we offer. I don't have the book with me right now, but we do have a couple books that we do offer. The first one is Why Am I a Member of the Church of Christ? It is a book that talks about the church. It's a good book, written by Brother Leroy Brownlow. And so if you would like that book, we'd encourage you to reach out to us. We also offer a little encyclopedia that has a lot of Bible verses and things, Bible topics that you can look up, and things such as that. So contact us at the number below at the bottom of the screen, or email us at bluespringschurchofchrist@gmail.com. Also, if you're around the area and you would like to study the Bible, we'd love to be able to study with you. If you're not around the area, we'd still like to at least set you up a contact, maybe around the area, or even over the phone. We'll be able to. I'll be happy, more than happy to study over the phone as well. FaceTime, whatever that will be.
There's so many avenues to use.
Absolutely. And so just contact us. Again, those contact information at the bottom of the screen, or the email bluespringschurchofchrist@gmail.com. And also we do offer a Bible correspondence course, which we'll send to you for free. Send you an envelope to return it, and along with the next lesson. Everything is absolutely free. And so those are some things that we offer, and again, we encourage you to reach out to us. We want to thank you for your viewing tonight. We do have an important topic tonight.
Thank you for your time.
That's right. Thank you for your time. That is right. We're talking about time tonight. Time is a very interesting a very interesting study. When you think about it, time is like we said, very interesting. And you think about many movies that have been associated with time.
Yep.
If you're a movie person, I've never actually watched this movie, or the movies. Back to the Future. If you're a Marvel person, some things like that.
Yep.
But many movies have been made about that, or many ideas, maybe some books have been written about that. And you have people who try to go back to the future and things such as that. And of course that can't happen.
Yeah.
But
it's funny how they call it Back to the Future.
Back to
like
the
you're
future.
Going back, but it's the future.
It's the future.
Right?
That's right.
Play on words, I guess you could say.
Right. But when we think about time is an essential element, because everything that we do revolves around time.
It does. Yeah.
Whether we're working, we often can't wait till 5 o'clock hits. We get to go home.
There's 8 hours in the day of work, right? They say
8 hours, or
8 hours.
Some work more, some work less. But yeah, and you have that. But time is multifaceted when it comes to a relationship to man. It can be beneficial to him. For instance, we may often say, like, I'm so glad this day flew by. I'm so glad that this day.
So glad for the weekend. So ready for the weekend. So
and that's because
this
of time.
week is past. Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure. I always say something about time is when you're doing something that, like, say I'm at work.
Right.
You're always seeing a clock in front of you.
Right.
When the weekend comes, you don't pay attention to it, and it just flies by.
That's right. And that's the interesting thing about time is when you focus on it, it kind of goes slower. But it can be beneficial to us. We may say, I'm glad the time is over. My pain is over.
Yeah.
I'm glad that time did that.
Time heals all wounds, they say.
That's right. Absolutely. Time is very important. It can be beneficial, but it can be also harmful to us. For instance, we may, say, man, like you said, the weekend, I can't believe time is over. It's gone by so fast when you're having a good time.
Or like when you go see loved ones or, relatives or something, you're having so much fun. Or
that's right.
For us personally, we love going to the lectureships. And when we get there, it's you don't pay attention to time because you're just enjoying all the
right.
fellowship, the Bible lessons that you hear, and it just flies by so quickly.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about at the end of our lesson tonight that we won't have to worry about that in heaven, it being over.
For sure.
Because we'll be in eternity. But absolutely. But think about it. I like this quote from this one person. He said, "Time is free, but it's priceless. You can't own it, but you can use it. You can't keep it, but you can spend it. Once you've lost it, you can never get it back." And that's very true.
Very true.
Today, at 9:54, March, what's today? The 2nd?
Second. Yeah.
March 2nd, 2023 at 9:54 will never happen again. 10 seconds ago will never happen again. Time just doesn't happen. And so, again, that's interesting. So that, makes us want to...
Well, as you grow older, too, you think about how time has flown by. I think about the times when you were born, 20 years ago.
That's right.
You look back on it and you go, whoa, time has flown by. Flies by so
made
quick.
Yourself look old, but that's okay.
That's okay.
But
not as old as some.
That's right. That's right. Not as there are others who are older. No, but yeah, time is priceless. We want to make sure that we make good use of our time. Time is unpredictable. No one can predict the times or seasons, right?
Yep.
We try to predict things, but we can't. At this certain amount of time, we're going to do this, or this is
the only being that knows what's going to happen is God.
That's right, because He's omniscient, omnipresent, and things like that. Absolutely,
for sure.
And so, when we think about time is unpredictable and allows us to appreciate life. I like what one person said. The question was asked, "If you could live forever, would you?" And the answer was yes. To which the scientist laughed and said, "All right, we're done." No, and then we continue to explain it. He says, "The knowing that I have only a limited amount of time basically makes us appreciate tomorrow. Because if we just had tomorrow, maybe we wouldn't appreciate, and we could just do whatever we want. But because time is limited, because we only have a certain amount of time, it allows us to appreciate that. And so that should prompt us to want to appreciate time."
Yeah, for sure.
So
I got a definition of time. It's the indefinite continued progress of existence and events in the past, present, and future, regarded as a whole.
That's right. That's right.
You think about that. Back to your question of, would you like to live forever? Knowing we can't, but it's an if. It can never happen. But I would say no.
Well, on this earth.
Yeah, on this earth.
Yeah.
In eternity, yeah.
And I think that might be one of our points, but the idea is that we're going to live we'll always exist because we have an eternal soul. Genesis 1:26, God made us in His image. It's simply a soul, but we won't live on this physical earth. We're going to be out. We're going to be in eternity.
Yep.
But yeah, absolutely. I think.
But to be physically on this earth forever.
That's right.
No.
I just don't
see
know
all the pain. See all the. You'd see a lot of different things, but knowing in true reality that will never happen.
Yeah, and having that hope of eternity, I think, allows us to have that hope.
And like James says too, we're only here for a vapor.
That's right. We'll read that. Yeah,
Yep.
we'll get into that verse, and so, but yeah, basically, is Dad defined time. Now, when it comes to time, God originated such. We won't take the time to read this, but remember He divided day and night, evening and morning. And so although we live inside the bounds of time, and you think about it.
Remember, it was all good.
And it was all good. Absolutely. So time is beneficial for us. God made it.
God made it.
But notice something. Is that although we live in the bounds of time, God lives, as Dad said, outside of that. He doesn't see minute by minute. He sees the whole picture. And I like what Leland gives this illustration. You've heard this before with the guy on the ladder.
Yep.
And that's basically God, and he sees the whole picture of this artwork. And whereas we're the little ones working on our little pieces, but God sees the whole in time. And so that since God is omniscient and omnipresent, He can see everything.
It's kind of like we're working on our little piece of the puzzle.
That's right. And really, we're working second by second, right?
Yeah.
And in 10 seconds, I don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
I have a pretty good idea, but I can't be for sure. But God's already seen that.
Yeah.
And so that should make us trust him even more. But that's a side point. But let's go to 2 Peter. Let's get into this. 2 Peter 3, and Dad, you just shout out stuff too. Okay. 2 Peter 3 verse 8 says, well, before we read that verse, we need to remember that God is everlasting. The psalmist said that. Everlasting to everlasting. Jesus calls himself the Alpha and the Omega, which is interesting because the Alpha in the Greek, Alpha is the first letter, and I might get this wrong. I believe the Omega might be the last letter. I have to go throughout the alphabet.
Sing it for us.
No, I'm not going to. I can't sing it. I'm not singing it. But God is beginning and end. He created the beginning, and he will be there in the end. Yep. And we need to remember that God, he didn't have a beginning. He's just always
he's always
existed.
been. We tend to think of, we're human, so we think of time as there's a beginning and an end. Like there's a beginning for me and there will be an end. There's a beginning for you and there will be an end. Right. For God, he's always been. Yeah,
and that's when he, in Exodus 3, when he says, I am, well, I am simply, this is cool, it just means to exist. Mm-hmm. He's just there. And
he tell them, I am.
I am what? No, I
am.
I'm just, I am.
As humans, we're going, you're what? No, I am.
I am. And that's an interesting thing to think about.
It's powerful.
Yeah. You want to read 2 Peter 3, verse 8?
Verse 8 says, But behold, do not forget one thing, that with the Lord 1 day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is 1 day.
Yeah, so basically God is not bound. He doesn't
by time
work, and he's not working 1 day at a time. He's working eternity.
Yep.
And that should help us appreciate him more.
But that puts it in a mindset for us of 1,000 years. That's, what's our average lifespan? Maybe 80, 85?
I think
it was like 72.
73 or something like that.
Something like that. So, yeah.
And God, it's hard for us to grasp, but he, before the beginning, he saw this moment, and he saw every moment, and so God doesn't
before he made everything. He's seen every moment.
That's right. And that should make us trust him. Just making application for us, but that should make us trust him, knowing that God sees beyond that. He, as Dan Winkler says, he works through the annals of time. He already sees what's going to happen. And so if, I like the song, I Know Who Holds Tomorrow, because God doesn't work by time. He can do that.
I also like to heard a sermon the other night of, he was talking about faith. And I like to put that word with it as trust. Faith and trust together.
Yeah, you have to,
You have to.
Absolutely. Trusting God. Trusting the Lord with all thine heart. Yep. Don't lean on thine understanding.
For sure.
And so, God doesn't work. He's not bound by time. Mm-hmm. But he works with time. I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Galatians 4, verse 4 says that when the fullness of time, simply, God looked through the annals of time and said, this particular point, I'm going to send Jesus. And so God does work with time, but it's not overshadowed.
Yeah.
And he's done that a lot of times.
It's not overshadowed like we overshadow it, because we're here on Earth and 24 hours in a day and so many this and so many that. But
absolutely.
Just wait till we get to heaven.
That's right. Where it'd be one, it'd be an eternity.
Yep.
And so, so when we talk about time, we need to remember that it is limited. There is a time for everything, and that what we do with our time on this earth, it will determine our place in eternity. So let's talk about limits of time. We've kind of already defined time. Mm-hmm. Dad read the definition for us. And so let's talk about we're limited with time. As Dad mentioned earlier, and I have a statistic here. Of course, I think there are various statistics, that kind of people talk about, about how long people live and things such as that. One of the sources said about 73 years is the average for humans, man and woman. And so in other words, I broke this down. Notice this. It kind of makes it more simpler.
Wow.
Or kind of more like, wow, my time's limited. Because 73 years, that's feels like eternity. But when you think about it like this, at least just for me, maybe not for you, but it says 876 months. We only get 800 on average, some more, some less. Or 26,280 days. Now, when you put it in those terms, you kind of think, wow, my time's limited, right? My time is that. And we see
Well,
the
that's got to be
shortness of
more
that.
than 876 months, didn't it? Because
No, I took 73.
oh, no, I'm thinking days. Sorry.
No, no.
Yep.
Days was the 26,000.
Gotcha.
870, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of puts it into perspective.
Well, think about it. Think about, like, back in the Old Testament when they used to live, was Methuselah the oldest at 900 and something?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then God lowered it to 120 years, in a way, right?
Well,
I don't
that's
say
a good
lowered,
study.
But yeah, that's a good study.
But how long people lived did change. It might have been probably because the flood
Yeah,
and the atmosphere, which is interesting study.
it is very interesting.
I think I haven't studied it, but I think it'd be cool to study. That's what I believe it was. But yeah, absolutely. You have people living years and years and years and years and years, and we don't believe that. I really believe that was reality, 906 years. But when we're talking about the shortness, it's short. We only have a little bit of time. Let's go to the psalmist in Psalm 90. In Psalm 90, if we look at verses about 9 through 12, and so Psalm 90, verses 9 through 12 says, "For all our days are passed away in thy wrath. We spend our years as a tale that is told. The days of our years are 80 years and 10." Simply, that's 70. And this is going to be from Brother Alan Webster. I have his in school. We did some Bible marking. And he said, number one, life's outer limits. Well, there you go, 70 years. Continuing on, "And if by reason of strength there be 80 years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow. For it is soon cut off and we fly away." That's number three, life's sudden end. "Who knoweth," verse 11, "the power of thine anger, even according to thy fear, so it is thy wrath." Verse 12, life's final transition. So that was point number 4. Mm-hmm. We fly away. "So teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts to wisdom." I like what he also added here, which is probably from him because but it says quality, not quantity. That's what matters, quality.
Yep.
And so we want to remember that. But when we think about time being limited, some have less than others. It's a sad thing to see many people die of cancer, and it's a very sad thing.
Well, looking over verse 12 of that, it says, "So teach us as to number our days." I think of that as teaching people that you don't have that much time here on earth.
Right.
So let's focus on the things that can draw us closer to God, bring us closer to God.
Yeah, absolutely.
Teach others about God.
That's right. Using our time, we'll talk about that in a moment. Mm-hmm. But absolutely, teach us to number our days. Make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing. And you think about death. Death, and we don't like to use this or you like this phrase, but death is a part of life.
It is.
It is, and it's sad. But God is not a respecter of persons. He's not playing chess with time. And what we mean by that is He's not. Well, you're going to die here, and you're going to live here.
And He's not up there picking and choosing. Well, Noah's going to do this.
Right.
Matt's going to do this.
Yeah.
So and so's going to do this. I mean, He just no.
Yeah.
He's not a respecter of that.
Right. Absolutely. Nature, takes its course. People choose things such as that. Not everything is God's will. It wasn't God's will. I don't believe this at all. Some do, but I can't see that. It's not God's will that somebody dies of cancer.
Nope.
I don't believe that. But again, we have limited time. Each person has their own clock. Time is not a respecter of persons either. No,
it is not.
So
it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
It's kind of like as you're younger. Me and your mom talked about this. As you're younger, 20 seems old. You get to 20. Mm-hmm. Well, then 30 seems old. And it keeps climbing, right? It keeps going, well, now you're 30, now 40. Mm-hmm. Well, now you're 40, now 50. And so on and so forth. And, you just, I think as you grow older, you learn to appreciate time more.
I think so. I should have recorded what I found on, there was a quote, and it said, at 20, at childhood, your time goes slow. And then in each stage,
You're wishing you can grow up faster.
At 80, it's like time's gone by. Like, it goes by fast.
Yep.
Why? Because you're reaching almost the end of time. And so we only have a limited amount of time.
Yep.
The phrase "we're running out of time" has been, it's just running out of time. Superheroes will say that. We're just running out of time.
We're running out of time to save this such and such.
And in a sense, we are.
Yeah, we are. We're running out of time to save souls.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, you think about just a couple areas, like Dad said, there are many areas of life where we experience the limit of time. Like Dad said, evangelism, we're running out of time. Yep. We're running out of time because we're growing older. Souls are dying. I saw a statistic, and this, I don't know when this statistic was given. It could be more, it could be less now, but every 2 seconds or every second there's 2 souls, or at least a little over 2 souls that are dying and be lost. And so we want to make sure that we're making sure that we make good use of our time. But think about parents raising your children. You had me 20 years ago. Yeah. Not you, but Mom. And that went by like that probably
it
for
did.
you. I mean, maybe it felt like slow. Probably.
No, it's fast. I mean, you're a parent and you see your children grow, and it's like, whoa, what happened?
That's right. It goes by fast.
Yeah.
I mean, parents only have 18 years to about more sometimes. They still teach, but around that to train their children up in the way
build
that they
a
should
good
go.
foundation. Right?
I want to read a comment. Jonathan Exum said that we run out of time preaching our sermons. Absolutely. I sometimes don't get everything filled in as a preacher. But, yeah, we run out of time in certain things. Think about people with cancer. They don't catch it early, then they run out of time.
Yep.
And let's talk about salvation, because this is the most important. When we reach the age of accountability, we have a responsibility to obey the gospel. Now let's go to a couple verses. If you want to read James, okay. I'm going to go to another verse. You can go ahead first. Okay. When we talk about time, this is what Dad brought up earlier, is the idea of time, and if you really picture this verse in your mind, like picture this illustration, I think it will help us.
James 4:14, verse 14. Whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Like that vapor, you imagine a kettle on a stove, and you see it for 2 seconds, and then it's just gone.
And that's the way our life is, and that's kind of the way we need to live. Like not live like there's no tomorrow, but in a way live like there's no tomorrow.
In a way, yeah.
That doesn't mean you get to go out and do whatever you want and do things of the world, and no.
Absolutely.
Live a godly life, but live like there's no tomorrow.
Absolutely, because
we don't, like you said, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's like a vapor. It's there. Mm-hmm. Our life, I think someone told me this, is is like a field of grass, and our life is just one blade of that grass compared to eternity. Yeah. And so we only have a little bit, so we want to make good use of our time. Romans 13, verse 11 says, "And that knowing the time, that now it is high time to wake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believed." And so it's now. It's not, for our salvation, we have an opportunity. Since our time is limited, we want to obey. We want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can now, because tomorrow's not promised.
It's not.
And I want to go to another verse that shows this. In 2 Corinthians 6, verse 2, and we kind of see this similar wording here. And I believe that Paul is quoting the Old Testament. And he says, Isaiah, I believe, he says, 2 Corinthians 6, 2, "For he saith, I have heard thee in a time accepted, and in the day of salvation have I secured thee. Behold, now is the accepted time. Behold, now is the day of salvation." Why is it now? Because tomorrow can't be promised.
And that goes to Isaiah 49:8.
49:8, thank you. And so, yeah, but salvation, now.
Now.
We don't want to wait to that.
That's kind of like when you study with somebody, and you're going through the proper study, and
absolutely,
hey, are you ready to get baptized? You feel you're ready to get baptized? Now, it has to happen now.
Make a decision.
Make a decision now. It's not. Oh well, how about we put you on a waiting list and we'll gather a whole bunch of people and go then. No, it's now.
It needs to be a decision.
Salvation is now. It's a now thing. It's not a,
We'll
hey, you know
wait.
what, I'll wait.
Because you don't know when you're going to take your last breath.
Yeah.
And if we do it too late, then that's it. Because as we talked about, you can't get time back.
Yeah.
So.
And who knows if it would have happened earlier, how many souls you could have saved.
That's right.
I mean, we hear about the deathbed confessions or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that happens, and it's great that you win a soul that way. I mean,
well, it's good that people, or obey the gospel, even if it is right before their death, if they obey the truth. But again,
but to have that time back, think about it. Have all that time that you could have studied more and helped other. It's just, and maybe they did help in a certain way, but it's still the fact of they lost that time.
I'm reminded the urgency to obey, Acts 16 with the Philippian jailer.
Yeah.
They went, the same hour of the night.
Yeah.
Not, well, let's just wait till tomorrow. No. We're going now.
And
that's why when people, when you're studying with somebody, they see that they're lost.
The eunuch.
Yeah. What does hinder me to be baptized? Oh, just wait.
Just wait.
No.
Wait. He's like,
said.
no, here's some water. Let's go.
Yeah. So,
Can I go now?
Yeah, but the necessity of obedience now, because our time's limited.
But I think talking about salvation is, if you're on the fence, they say, time is of the essence. I mean, for your own salvation, you need to decide now.
That's right.
Don't put it off till tomorrow. Don't put it off another minute.
Mm-hmm.
If you're right there on the fence, you got to jump on the right side.
That's right.
You just have to go.
Because again, there's either two things: either Christ will come when you're not ready, or you may die.
Yes.
And that's the frailty of life, as we've heard from another preacher. But but since our time is limited, we need to make good use of our time. Let's go to Ephesians 5. And if we look at verse 16, Dad, do you want to read that?
Sure. Ephesians 5:16, redeeming the time because the days are evil.
We need to make good use of our time because it's limited. Those who have a limited resource, they're going to want to make sure that we, for instance, I like this illustration. You have a family member that comes in, you haven't seen them in a year, and they're only going to stay for 3 days. Well, what are you going to do during those 3 days? You're going to make sure you spend as much time with that person as you can.
Yep. Because
you love them, you care about them, you want to spend time with them. Well, we need to make good use of our time because it's only limited.
Well, this was very urgent. There's a sense of urgency in his voice here.
Absolutely.
Redeeming the time because the days are evil. There's hey, let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to do that in all aspects. I'm going to read a quote from Adam Clark. He had a beautiful thought. He said this: buying up those moments which others seem to throw away, steadily improving every present moment, that you may, in some measure, regain the time you have lost. Let time be your chief commodity. Deal in that alone. Buy it all up, and use every portion of it yourselves. Time is that on which eternity... I don't know about that phrase. Continue on. In time you are to get a preparation from the kingdom of God. If you get not this in time, your ruin is inevitable. Therefore, buy up the time. Simply make good use of your time. And we can do that by many things. Study, prayer, because it's limited. And so we need to
evangelism,
to do that.
servitude. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we are doing that. And it's like the 1 talent man. He buried his talent.
Yeah.
And he could have done something. It's interesting. If you look at that text, Matthew 25:19 says, after a long time, indicating that Jesus, the Master, is patient. And he's patient with us. But his patience will run out.
I love the patience that you gave in one of your sermons, was the patience of, it was just a thing of the angels talking to God about, World War, Civil War came. Is it now time? No. Be patient. Be patient. Right. World War I, World War II, hey, is it time? Be patient. God is patient. He's waiting for,
all souls to be saved.
Yeah. So
I need to use that sermon illustration. I don't know.
That was a good sermon illustration, by the way.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I remember that
I
one.
forgot about that. Wow. Okay, well, we think about time is limited. There was a quote, Charles Swindoll. I don't think he's a Christian, but I don't know. He had a good quote. He said, "Life is like a coin. You can spend it any way you want to, but you can spend it only once." In the sense of, you get to do what you want. Now, of course, if you're
you
lost,
only get one life to live.
That's right. No second chance. Well, there are second chances only in this life.
Yeah.
After you die, there is no second chances. Hebrews 9:27 is appointed unto men once to die, and after this, the judgment.
Yep.
And so time is limited.
Yep.
You only have a certain amount of time.
Yep.
So, all right, let's talk about number 2, time for everything. There is a time for everything. In Ecclesiastes 3, I'm going to turn over there.
Mm-hmm.
Ecclesiastes 3, Solomon, in Ecclesiastes is kind of, I like to think of this, I don't know, I can't be sure.
These are some of my favorite verses. So I don't know why I've always liked these.
Yeah, these are very good.
Well, I know why, because it's God's word, but.
Right. But you think about Solomon, this is him writing, and I like to think of this as his, quote, repentant book, kind of looking back at life, and I shouldn't,
I shouldn't have done those things. I shouldn't have.
Those things.
Like in chapter 2, he's talking about vanity, right?
Right. And just all the things that he has.
Mm-hmm.
And verse 1, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. There's a fitting time, as Barnes says, for all things. And so when we think about time, there are different times that are beneficial. Let's just go briefly through this. We want to take just briefly mention it.
Okay.
But verse 2, a time to be born and a time to die, simply, we're born. There's going to be a time we're born.
Yep.
You were born, we won't mention, 19, none of your business.
78. I'm good with that. Yeah.
2002. Okay, that's a set time. There's a time to be born, and then there's going to be a time to die. We don't know when that is, but I like this thought too. We can't change that.
No, we cannot.
That has already happened.
I like this thought too. If you go to Genesis 1 and read 26 through 27,
Mm-hmm.
and God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." So God created man in his own image.
Right.
In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them.
Absolutely.
Think about it. We are in the image of God.
Yeah.
And we're born in the image of God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, we are. With an eternal soul. And so the idea of after death, we're not annihilated.
No.
We are still, we will, I believe, I think the scriptures teach this, but we will always be conscious. Luke 16 with the rich man says, I think, proves that. But we're born with an eternal soul, and so we're born, but then we're going to die physically. The body will.
Well, if we didn't, what's the point of us learning? What's the point of us teaching? What's the point of us?
If we're going to live on this earth forever, then
what's the point?
Why would I want to go to basically?
Or if we're going to be annihilated, what's the point of knowing? Or
yeah, that's a good point too. Annihilation. Yeah. Well, what's the point of being faithful if I'm going to cease to exist?
Yeah.
The argument is, well, you'll get to go to heaven. Yes, but if I'm just going to cease to exist and there's no punishment, I'm not going to know that.
Yeah.
And so, that doctrine of annihilation is false teaching.
Yes, it is.
But he continues. He says, verse 2, a time to plant and a time to pluck up. I don't know. I made this application. There are times when we can root ourselves in a situation, but other times we must remove ourselves from it.
Exactly. Perfect.
There are times we have to.
There are times when we need to plant in this situation and say, hey, we're in it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this. Let's figure
Congregation,
this out.
city.
Yep.
But then there are times we say,
and then there are times where you have to uproot yourself and say, I've got to go away from this situation, this toxic situation. Yep. You have to get up and go. Yeah.
And again, there's different seasons of life, that we see.
I remember one of your mom's friends always told her that there's seasons of life, and though we may be friends this season, we may not next season, or there's different times in our lives.
Absolutely.
That we got to be conscious of.
Yeah, because things change. I mean, it's just life, time.
Yeah.
Time changes.
For sure.
And so, and then he continues, there's a time to kill, a time to heal. Evil must be punished, one said, but there also is time for mercy.
Yep.
There's a time to destroy and a time to build up. Time to weep and mourn. You don't weep at graduations, usually. And
Some
you're
people
not...
might.
Well, just let me have my own
Okay.
illustration.
All right.
You don't weep at graduations, and you don't rejoice at funerals. You know.
Okay.
Usually you don't do that. Usually it's the opposite.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah, there's exceptions to that. Yes, we should rejoice that maybe they're in heaven, things like that, paradise.
Yep.
But
You're sad because they've left.
yes.
You and.
But there are appropriate times to
Mhm.
weep, and there are appropriate times to laugh. When someone's talking about a loved one dying or have
Yes.
cancer, you don't laugh.
No, you don't sit there and giggle. Oh, that's
You know,
great. No.
So there is different times to.
Mhm.
And that's what Solomon says. There's just different times
Yep.
for that. Time to mourn, time to weep, a time to gather stones, time to take away stones. There's a time to embrace and time to refrain from embracing. Bob Winton, he's a commentator, member of the church. He says there is a time for hugging and a time to get to work.
Mhm. Yep.
You know, he would also point out in regard to children, there's a time for embracing and a time for spanking.
Yeah.
Things like that.
There is.
So.
Yeah. Spare the rod, spoil the child.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to make sure that we're training up children, and as God commands us. But there is a time, it continues, to get a time to lose, time to keep away, to keep, and a time to cast away.
We don't like that one though. Well, some people don't like to lose, right?
Right.
We don't like to lose.
Absolutely, yeah. We don't like to lose things, but sometimes a time to rend, a time to sow. Sometimes division is necessary. Think about this. I'm not going to unify with. Can't have unity with sin.
No.
And so there is a time that we have to
Pull away.
to do that.
Yeah. There's many examples of that in the world today. Of maybe you're at an office and they want to go out for lunch or something, and they want to go to a bar, and no, I don't go there.
I'm a Christian.
You got to pull away.
Absolutely.
Just different situations you have to pull away from.
Absolutely. Things that are going to cause us to sin,
Yeah.
we need to remove ourselves. And that goes back to the idea, this might be the appropriate time to uproot.
Uproot and walk away.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a time also to keep silence and a time to speak.
That's a tough one sometimes, right?
Yeah.
It's sometimes tough to be quiet in certain situations, but God does say that.
It is. James 1:19.
Yes.
God gave us how many ears?
Yeah.
And one mouth, I think for a reason.
Yeah.
So we just need to be quiet sometimes, but then there are times we have to speak up.
Definitely. We have to stand our ground. We have to say, no, that is wrong.
But we have to balance that time.
Mm-hmm.
But there's all that. Remember that time. There's certain situations that this occurs. There's a time to love, a time to hate. Of course, we're always to love, but there's a time we hate sin, as Bob Winton said. Time for war, time for peace.
Yep.
Sometimes war is necessary, but one said that the end result is always peace. Always peace.
Yeah.
And so, we have that idea. But there's always there's different seasons of life.
I like that. Yeah, I like I gave you the commentary, whatever it is. It's
Sermon,
titled "The Seasons of Life."
Yeah, I put the main points on here. It's interesting.
Yep. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Let's mention those. You want to mention that? Sure.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I like this thought because when you think about time, there's different stages. And I'll also go to a verse. I'm going to quote another because I like what Alan Webster said as well. But notice that in this sermon, he says there is youth, which is springtime, the season of preparation. You're preparing to do that and things like that. Preparing to grow, preparing to figure out what you're going to do.
It's a preparation.
Yeah.
Right? Springtime is a time for preparation.
You're planning for the summer, and
Mm-hmm.
Springtime is when they plant crops, right?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Get seeds ready.
I'm not a farmer.
You should have seeds ready in the winter and
Yeah.
get those going. And
Yeah. Okay.
Springtime is when you start.
Yeah. Okay. Good. But youth is that time for preparation.
Yep.
And if you're a preacher, here's our alliteration, all P's. Manhood and womanhood, summertime is the season of production. When a youth decides to, date and they decide to get married, they have children, producing seed. Genesis 1.
Yep.
That's a season of life.
It is.
And they title it summertime. This is from La Vista Church of Christ, by the way.
Yep.
But then there's a time of maturity, autumn time, the season of provision. You mature. You realize things that
you're gathering, getting your life together, kind of.
Right. Middle age.
You're getting there.
I'm not getting it. I'm not
close.
I'm in the youth still. I'm number
youth.
one.
You're number one.
But maturity. There's a time for maturity. And it's interesting because each person goes through basically you go through it's youth and you'll get there. But here's the thing I think this is interesting and I've learned this too, is you don't want to rush any stage. I wanted to grow up as a little boy.
Oh, we all did.
Yeah, everybody does. So I can't wait to get a job and get married and have kids. It'll come, and we have to be okay with that.
And what we've kind of told you guys is pump the brakes, right? Slow it down.
Because you won't ever get that time again. And there's a comment about that, and I like that. But you won't ever get that time again, as we talked about.
Yeah.
But there's that time of maturity, the autumn time. And then there's fourthly, the elderly, the winter time, the season of preservation. When you get in older years, things start slowing down or maybe speeding up. I don't know. But yeah, the elderly time, season of preservation. You look back at throughout all your years and you say, well, look at all the things I've accomplished or I want to accomplish or would have wanted to.
Yeah.
And so I like those 4 points, but I like also this. And let me just briefly share this with you. This is from Alan Webster. He said that the 20s are the years of expectation. 30s are the years of energy. 40s are the years of discovery. 50s are the years of harvest. 60s are the years of wisdom. 70s are the years of legacy. And then he said 80s are the years of bonus. And so I like that thought. I like those thoughts. There's different times. We don't want to rush that because then we're missing out on an important function.
So much time we're missing out on. We like to, as living here on this earth, we like to look for the next best thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing.
Right.
Let's slow down. Just slow down and enjoy your time.
Absolutely.
Enjoy the time that God has given you,
Yeah.
Enjoy like your 20s. Enjoy your 30s, your 40s. And,
don't rush it because it will come.
Very great commentary.
I like that, yeah. Alan did a good job with that one. But it is imperative that we understand that time changes. I think this is interesting too. I think this might be a little different point if we continue, but like the idea is we may often fear, well, this is a hard time right now.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, I like what one famous actor said, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
Like this is going to pass. This is going to end. And so we say this is just a hard time. Well, remember, time changes.
Yep.
And things happen. So
one of your mom's favorite verses is Hebrews 12:11.
Absolutely.
Right? It says, no chastening seems to be joyful for the present, but painful nevertheless. Afterward it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it.
Absolutely.
Though we may be going through a hard time, realize that you're going to get through it.
Absolutely.
And it makes you stronger.
Yeah. Times change, and we can trust God, knowing that He looks through that.
Yeah.
Even though
He knows.
Think about that. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. So let's talk about some things. I know we have about 15 minutes or so, but let's talk about how we can make good use of our time here on this earth.
I like this one.
And I like these too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about number one, how to make good use of our time. Don't procrastinate.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
What does Benjamin Franklin say? Don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today. Good advice.
It's funny you say that because procrastination, it's kind of like it's like for me it was younger. You'd put off stuff and put off stuff. As you get older, you're like, anymore you're like, no,
gotta get done.
I want to get done. I want to do this. I want to do this.
Right.
We still procrastinate though.
Yeah.
Today,
No, absolutely. Then you learn to get things done.
But I like that it says when we do this, we almost always waste our time. Get it done today, so tomorrow can be filled with other tasks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just because we got other things to do.
Mm-hmm.
Don't leave it because
things start building, they'll start building, right?
Like for instance, class. Sometimes I procrastinated. I will. And sometimes you do that. When you procrastinate, then it comes to the point, it's like, man, I wasted all this time.
Yeah.
And I think that the second thing kind of is associated with this. Number 2, don't practice perfection.
For sure.
I'm a perfectionist, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
Because but when you think that everything has to be perfect, you're gonna procrastinate because it doesn't feel perfect. So I'm just put it off. Well, we need to get it done today, but you don't have to be perfect.
But I like what you also put in here. Nothing will be perfect, even if you try to make it that way. Yeah.
Like that's impossible. Even though we try it and try, it will never be perfect. So
Well, I'm that same way. I've been studying for class and preparing a class, and it's like, you go, well, it's not how I think it should be. This and that, and sometimes you just got to be like, okay, it's good.
What I've had to learn is just put your thoughts in there, and if it's from God's word, obviously, but
for sure.
You don't have to be a scholar about the whole subject.
No.
If you're talking about grace,
if you think you have to be, you're never going to be the greatest scholar. Never
will be. You'll never know exactly. So just teach what you know, study further, things like that. But don't practice perfection. Be content with great or good. You never will get perfect.
Never.
But don't practice perfection, because if you do, you're not. That's not really. It's really you're not making good use of your time when you do that. Do plan ahead. I like this one. Plan ahead. We ought to be cautious of the future.
And if you have to, make a list.
Yeah.
Me and your mom, we love lists. I love crossing off stuff.
Right.
Like just seeing it done. Just
absolutely.
Things that you have to do.
Daily schedule. Make sure that we get things. We want to be cautious with our time. Yeah. We want to have plans, and if it gets tweaked, it's okay. But we want to plan ahead. And I like this thought too. Do enjoy today.
Yes.
Do enjoy today. As we said, we want to enjoy the present moment because tomorrow may not come for us. God has given us a limited amount of time on this earth. Number one, we need to enjoy what He has given us. Mm-hmm. Is it okay to enjoy the life that He's given us? Absolutely. Not in sin, not at all, but to enjoy. Man, God's given me the opportunity to enjoy His creation, to enjoy His people, to enjoy things that make me happy.
There's so much beauty around that we sometimes don't even see.
Granted. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. But we need to enjoy today. The good old days. Well, when we talk about the good old days, well, you're living in the good old days. You really are. Yeah. Maybe because
I know sometimes we think back and we go, well, what about those good old days? Remember those good old days? Say we didn't have cell phones and we just sat around and talked. But these can still be the good old days.
Absolutely.
These can still
I think
be
it
great
was
days.
One of my instructors that said that, I'm trying to get the thought right, but when concerning like the good old days, you go back 10 years from now and you say, oh, those were the good old days. But when you go back 10 years, you forget all the struggles that you went through.
You do.
And you probably wouldn't call them the good old days.
Yeah. You see all the good things.
Only remember.
You only remember the good things.
Good. Yeah. And so enjoy today. Yeah. Again, we ought to do that. Paul, Philippians 4:11 says he was content. I'm going to read that verse. Philippians chapter 4. Look at verse 11. Paul says, not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am to be content. To be content. Whatever state. Sometimes we may say, man, I just want this time to be over, suffering. I just want it to be over. Yes, we do. There are suffering. We don't want to enjoy that, or we don't want to be in that. But it will be over, and when we can enjoy the things and things like that.
And you'll grow from that. You'll grow from those situations.
Absolutely.
Count it all joy, my brethren.
Absolutely. I like what one preacher said. Let me read this comment that he said. He said this, you have time today. Enjoy the time you have today. Circumstances will change. Enjoy the moments you have now. It is not necessarily that life will be better or worse, but life will be different. There was a time when I was single, and there was, this preacher, I was single, and there were special times about that time, like no responsibilities and living fairly carefree. There is the time when you are married and you are able to enjoy time with your spouse without interference. It is a great time to build a marriage and share time together. There is a time when you have children and you enjoy them when they are so little and completely dependent upon you for everything. There is a time when the children are no longer completely dependent, but completely independent. You see that life keeps changing. We must enjoy what is, because what is will change, and we will have something different to appreciate. That was from the West Palm Beach Church of Christ. But again, making sure we know that today we have today.
Times change.
Times
like
change.
Solomon says, there's a time for everything.
There is, absolutely. So let's conclude our lesson with this question. What about eternity? We notice that time is limited.
Very limited, yes.
And of course, there is a time for everything we do. And we think about eternity, there will never be an end to eternity. Revelation 22, verse 5. And in eternity, there will be no perfect time for anything, because the perfect time is just always be in eternity with God. And we know that death is sure, and we know that we're going to die, or Christ is going to come. And so, since we don't know that, let's make sure that we're making good use of our time, whether it be if we haven't obeyed the gospel. Let's obey the gospel. So we're ready for eternity, because we're going to be in eternity no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't get a choice. You will be in eternity.
And, to sit and think about eternity, you'll drive yourself nuts.
Oh, yeah.
You can't think about eternity that way, But we need to realize that there is an end.
Right.
And it's coming. I mean, there's an end for everyone. I mean, it's a season of change.
Absolutely. But yeah,
death is for sure.
What are we using our time for to prepare for eternity? Because the what we do with our time here will determine our place in eternity, whether it be in the fires of hell or whether it be in heaven.
Yeah, what are you preparing for?
Absolutely.
You have to prepare for certain things here on earth, jobs and different things, like preparing a lesson or doing this. You have to prepare. Are we preparing for eternity?
That's right.
Where do you want to be for eternity? That is a question.
Right. Absolutely. And again, you don't know when your life is going to be over. So, again, we hope that you would
love everybody to be in heaven.
Absolutely.
And God would too.
God would too.
Yeah.
That's 2 Peter 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, if you're listening tonight and you want to make sure that you're ready for eternity, contact us. We'd love to be able to study with you, share the scriptures, even if it's over the phone. We'll do that. Yep. Let's conclude with this thought. There are 1,440 minutes in a day. Is that right?
Yeah.
60 times 24. Is that about right? Yeah, that's about right. How much of that, of course, is is time spending and serving God?
Yep.
How much of our time is doing that?
How much of that time is getting ate up by other things too?
Absolutely.
We need to realize that time is a very important thing, and it runs out quickly.
Mm-hmm. It does.
It
does. We only have a little bit. You might have more time than I do on this earth. Somebody else might have shorter amount of time than we don't know. Time is unsure. So let's make sure that we make good use of our time.
So if you need anything, prayers,
absolutely,
want to study, time is of the essence.
That's right. Time is now. So yeah, each moment we are running out of time.
Yep.
If you think about that, each moment time is running out for us.
Yeah, it is.
It's that clock, 26,000 days, I don't know how many we have, but specifically, but that's just lowering every day.
Yep.
Getting closer to eternity. So I think that will end our lesson for tonight. We do want to thank everyone for listening in, and I hope this was encouraging. Again, we want to thank Dad for joining us here. So thankful for his his study and things such as that. We do want to share what we offer before we close. I don't have the book with me, or the books with me. We offer a book, Why Am I a Member of the Church of Christ? It is a book about the Church of Christ. It gives you all the things associated with it, just kind of the names, the doctrines, things such as that.
Very good book.
And we'll be able to have your Bible open always as you read that. And we'll send you that for free. Just contact us. There's an encyclopedia, a little booklet about this big, and we'll give that to you for free if you'd like that. Just different Bible doctrines in there. And then if you'd like a Bible correspondence course, we'll send you one for free, return envelope, and with the next lesson. And I think there's 16 lessons or something like that. And then if you're around the metro area, please contact us. You are not a hinder. You'll never be a hinder.
Nope.
We always love to study the Bible, and we'll be able to show you what the Scriptures say about salvation, about the Church of Christ, and about things such as that. And so we'd love to be able to do that. Time's running out for all of us, so we want to make sure that we're ready for eternity. All right, I think that will end it for us tonight. We hope that everyone will have a great evening. We want to remind everyone to always remember to keep on keeping on. And Dad, do you have anything else?
No, just time is of the essence, as we keep saying, and if you're on that fence of should I obey the gospel, should I not, just remember tomorrow's not promised.
That's right. Absolutely.
And if you have any questions, please reach out.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.